our main role is to be a deterrent. We're going to be a deterrent to any type of adversary in the region, and should deterrence fail, we have to be ready to fight tonight if required.
For thousands of tourists each year, Crete is a place of sea and sunshine holidays. For the destroyer USS James E Williams and her crew, though, coming here is very much work. This one of many stops she's making during a year-long deployment as the flagship of standing NATO Maritime Group 2, the Alliance's multinational task group in the Mediterranean Sea. SNMG-2, as it's known, includes half a dozen frigates and destroyers. Rear Admiral Scott Sciaretta is the man in charge of this task group, keeping watch over the Mediterranean sea lanes and NATO's adversaries.
Normally we would be doing a lot of training and exercises, and now in addition to those training and exercises to always be ready, we're doing a lot of monitoring of the adversary. And Ukraine is very close to the backyard here of most of our NATO nations, so it brings the fight that's going on in Ukraine very close to the borders and lands of our allies. We have a combination of extremely capable FREM frigates from both Italy, from the French. We have Greek and Turkish frigates and destroyers. The Canadians will be joining us soon. So we continually flow forces in and out of theater. Germany, you name a nation, and we're flowing forces in and out.
The James E Williams, call sign DDG-95, entered service in 2004 and is one of 70 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers in the US Navy. With 4 gas turbine engines, it can reach speeds of up to 30 knots. On board, it carries a fearsome arsenal of firepower, including Tomahawk cruise missiles, air-launched torpedoes and anti-ship missiles. These can be fired from any of 96 vertical launcher tubes on the fore and aft decks of the ship. For defence, the destroyer is fitted with the Spy-1 radar system, which beams out from 2 octagon-shaped plates on the ship's superstructure. This gives it 360-degree vision, enabling it to track up to 800 targets at a range of more than 200 miles.
On to 130% now. Very well.
Today, the task group is conducting a live firing exercise. The warships training their guns on this small, uninhabited island, part of a Greek naval firing range. It involves some delicate navigation, managing the ship's speed and direction so they're in the right position to fire the 5-inch gun. To clear the range, they not only have to check the airspace above is empty, but also the sea below, making sure there's no submarines that could be damaged by wayward shells. After the bigger weapon, it's the turn of the ship's 25mm gun. The James E Williams has one of these on each side. Their nicknames, Thelma and Louise. More than 300 men and women serve on this destroyer. This deployment will take them away from their base in Norfolk, Virginia for 6 months.
Lima, power, Papa.
This is a multinational task group, and that's reflected on board ship. Among the Admiral's staff, there's Greek, Turkish, Spanish and Romanian officers, plus a British anti-submarine warfare specialist. The war in Ukraine, of course, has focused NATO's mind very much on the need to remain united. In this maritime group, for instance, there are both Turkish and Greek ships, nations that don't traditionally see eye to eye, but here they're working together along with a host of other nations in a common cause. But why does NATO need to patrol the Med?
The Mediterranean is a really important region with the Straits of Gibraltar, narrow choke point, susceptible to terrorist attack if ever there was one, so we police that element. We've also got the strait up into the Black Sea, and obviously we are at the northern end of the Suez Canal. So 3 key lines of information around the world centre and go through the Mediterranean. There's a lot of traffic here. We monitor illegal activity and also non-NATO activity in the Mediterranean.
As well as this destroyer, the US Navy also has an aircraft carrier in the Mediterranean. So how is the war in Ukraine affecting the way they operate?
NATO's always had an interest in Mediterranean regional security and stability. I would say even now with things going on in Ukraine, that adds a different dynamic to this area. There's an active war in this theater of operations. And so that makes the mission that we have here for NATO and on behalf of MARCOM all that more important, as there is active hostilities in the region.
When you come down below in this ship, you really get a sense of how confined things are. Every single inch, every nook and cranny seems to be used for something. And these destroyers were definitely designed for warfighting rather than human comfort. Now, 330 sailors live and work on board this ship, and many of them are very young, some just out of high school. and this deployment is the first time they've left the United States of America. Providing a taste of home are the ship's team of chefs. Here in the galley, they prepare hundreds of meals every day.
We like to think that the galley is the heart of the ship. Okay, so we serve about 900 meals per day, and a part of that we feed about 300 plus individuals each day, right? So a byproduct of us being able to supply healthy, nourishing meals to the crew is to be able to make sure that they are able to go forth and accomplish the mission set forth. Okay, so we have very specific days like Taco Day, Burger Day is a big one, and then Pizza and Wing Night. That's a pretty good one. We try to make sure that the atmosphere here and the morale here is up to standard. That way, when they're producing food with joy, they're producing food with love, and they understand what our mission is to be able to impact the team.
The ship's enlisted sailors, several hundred of them, eat here on the mess deck. On the wall, there's a reminder of how this vessel earned its name. Boatswain's mate James E Williams served on river patrol boats during the Vietnam War. During one legendary battle, he destroyed 65 enemy boats, his actions earning him the Medal of Honor, which is on display on board the ship. Here too a US military tradition, the empty table, a reminder of those held prisoner or missing in action. Tucked away in the bow of the destroyer is one of the busiest areas on board, the ship's store. On offer here, a vast selection of American snacks, supplements and merchandise.
Thank you. Have a good day.
With more than 300 sailors on board, someone has to do the paperwork. In this admin office, they manage their pay and naval records. Priscilla Araujo is originally from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and joined the Navy 2.5 years ago.
My father is really proud of me. He's been my biggest supporter since day one. When I told him I think I want to join the military, he's like, okay, that's what you want to do. And my entire family behind my back, super proud.
I don't have to put to or from anywhere, right? No, that's good.
For sailors away on deployment, mail is another vital link to home. The ship's post office will send and collect mail each time the destroyer docks. Everything from letters to Amazon parcels.
But Amazon is great for getting, people forget stuff. They want, they decide, oh man, I've got a craving for some, flaming hot Cheetos, and, they can order it and it'll be here usually 2 weeks to a month. I mean, it's not prime delivery where it's next day, but it's still better than waiting 6 months before we get back. So.
For many of these sailors, these deployments mean long separations from their families and children. One of the walls carries a gallery of new arrivals. This can be a tough and intense existence. Confined spaces, little privacy, and sporadic contact with home can be difficult to deal with.
Rejoice.
Traditionally, ships this size didn't have their own chaplain, but that's changing. Like many of her flock, Hayley Moffat, known as Chaps, is new to ocean life. She's spending the next 2 years attached to the James E Williams, offering support, kindness, and a listening ear to anyone who needs it.
You recognize in each other. You signed the same dotted line that I did that said that we are willing, if necessary, to give our lives in defense of our nation, in defense of our ideals, in defense of democracy. And it's truly just absolutely heart-changing to be around people like that regardless of whether they're 18, 37, 47, so on and so forth. These are people united by that bond of saying we're willing to do what it takes to defend our nation, to uphold our ideals, our values, to support our allies. It's incredible. They're inspiring, and because they give so much, because they sacrifice so much, I believe that each and every one of them deserves to have someone that they can go to. That's the least I can do on behalf of these people who every day just give so much for others.
One of the youngest sailors on board is mechanic Kerry Feibel from Louisiana. At the age of just 19, she's already served in the Navy for 2 years.
I became a dental assistant before I joined, and I realized I didn't really want to do that at the moment. So I figured, why not? Growing up, I always helped my dad work on cars and everything, so I guess I just like to work with my hands, so I figured, why not be a mechanic?
In the depths of the ship are the dormitories where the crew sleep. Down here it feels like permanent night. The red lighting designed to help sailors preserve their night vision. This tightly packed berth is home to 80 men, their bunks stacked 3 high, in what US sailors call, for obvious reasons, a coffin rack. Arleigh Burke-class destroyers are thirsty beasts. Their 4 gas turbine engines burn 1,000 gallons of fuel an hour. The James E Williams can carry 500,000 gallons of diesel, and today it's getting a top-up, linking up with a US Navy oiler called Kanawha in what sailors call a conrep, or connected replenishment.
So behind me is the replenishment at sea. We are taking on fuel. We have multiple stations that we can actually receive fuel at. Back here, this is Station 7, is one of the aft stations. We're taking on DFM, diesel fuel marine. It's just the main fuel that we use on the ship to give us the juice we need to go. I would venture to say that this process at 250,000 gallons would probably take around 2 hours, about 1.5 to 2 hours, if we were pumping at maximum pressure of 100 psi.
On the other side of the Kanawha is a Turkish frigate also taking on fuel. With its tanks full, the James E Williams detaches. Cue another US Navy tradition, the breakaway song. One of the biggest threats to these warships is submarines, the reason they carry an arsenal of air and surface launched torpedoes.
To my left here, we have the SVTT, surface vessel torpedo tube. You see in the movies a lot that submarines will hunt ships with these, right? But this is the Navy's way of hunting submarines back from surface ships.
3, 2. TAO, Captain, kill track 2.
When a sailor in Combat Information Center gives a signal to this system, it will slew over the side, it will shoot a torpedo out. Once it hits the water over the side, it will ignite and it will go on its mission to hunt its target.
Those submarines can also be hunted by these, the ship's 2 MH-60R Seahawks, a maritime version of the Black Hawk. Deployed from their base in Florida is Helicopter Maritime Strike Squadron 48, known as the Vipers. They have 7 pilots on board, plus a team of engineers and technicians to maintain the aircraft. Operating from the destroyer's small aft deck, particularly in rough seas, takes some skillful flying. In such a confined space, there's little margin for error.
They always say a boat landing is harder than what you do at home. You're going to take a little more power out because you want to get on the deck really right then. Approach starts from a half mile out. We're going to be at 200 feet, and then we try to come in and place yourself basically right over the back of the flight deck, about 40 feet, and try to match how fast the ship is going. So anywhere from 5 to 10 knots, somewhere in there is what we're usually looking at. And then depending on the pitch and roll, you're kind of coming in. So with the RAS system that we have, it's the probe underneath the helo that helps secure us to the deck. Once you're over the deck, that's what you're aiming for. So it's the little postage stamp that you'll see on the back of the destroyer flight deck that comes out. So we're getting over top of that, and then our air crewman in the back is conning us on over that. So there's a hole in the center line of the helo that they actually open up, and they're looking to try and line the probe up with that, and they basically call you on. So you're hearing left one, right one, forward one, aft one, all that kind of stuff from them. So really just fly down to the deck and then listen to their calls to get you down safe on deck.
To mark the James E Williams leadership role, the other members of the task group, Greek, Turkish, French and Italian ships, periodically pass by, practicing manoeuvring in formation, but also as naval tradition dictates, paying their respects to the flagship. This summer, this American warship will hand over to a British Royal Navy destroyer. Until then, though, for her crew, there's months of hard work and thousands of sea miles still to cover as they continue NATO's mission in the Med. Simon Newton, Forces News, aboard the USS James E Williams. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.